She loved that so much. Oh, okay, I guess it's my turn. Here we go. I'm going to take y'all on a little journey. Are you ready? Okay, close your eyes. Just go with me. Close your eyes for a moment. We're going to go on a little journey. Imagine that you are on a spaceship, way out in space. And this is a special spaceship. This spaceship takes us around all the various universes out there. And it shows us, takes us by places that we can go visit, that we can take tours. And this particular day, this spaceship is coming to the Milky Way galaxy and is passing by all of our beautiful planets. And on the right-hand side of this tour bus spaceship thing, we look out the window and we see this beautiful planet that's blue and green and white and just radiant over there in the distance. And the tour guide says, "Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, for all of you here that are on this spaceship, this is Earth, the ultimate game of the entire universe. You can go there. You can experience it. But this is no ordinary game. When you go there, you sign a very long contract. And this contract states things like, you might never come back. You might never come back to this place. You might also die there. You might experience horrible things there, horrible suffering. You might forget who you are. You might have addictions, illnesses. You might kill people. They might kill you. It's every experience that we could ever imagine is had in this beautiful game called Earth, this beautiful game of humanity. And all of us signed that contract. You may open your eyes. We are all here today. We are all here today in this beautiful game on Earth. Souls inside of a human body, having a human experience. I believe that before we come here, we have a soul pack, kind of like a pack of people, like a soul pack. And we're up there, and we're sitting around a circle. It's kind of like like an AA meeting, but not really. And we're sitting around in a circle, and we all have scripts in our hands. And it's a read-through. And we're all kind of looking at our scripts. And these are not the final scripts, because that's another fun part of the game, is the script can change once you're in the game. But we're sitting around all together before we come here, and we're reading the stories that we've written, the scripts that we've written for our human life, or lives, if you believe that. And I might say, I really want to play this guy named Christopher Scott Shaw, and then Mom would say, Patsy would say, I want to be your mother. I love the way that you have written me into your story. And I'm like, well, I love the way you've written me into your story, because it's so interesting, right? Because our play's kind of, it's complicated. And so we're sitting around, and I truly believe that we pick our parents before we come here. It's no accident. We know exactly who they are. Every one of us has agreed to play a certain role in the play of human life. And my mother chose her role. I chose her to be my mother. I chose my father to be my father, to bring me and us into this beautiful world, to experience everything that I wanted to experience in this life. And we did this together. It was, it's kind of a project. It's like a working project of a bunch of playwrights that are sitting around. We're like, no, I kind of like that. I don't like that. I don't like that. I want you to harm me, and I want you to kill me. I want you to, and you're like, I don't know if I want to do that. Oh, come on, you should do that. Oh, come on. And we all agree to this stuff, and then we come into the game. But the cool part about the game is that we come here with a veil of secrecy. We don't know who we are. We don't know that we're playing a game. We don't know that we chose our parents. We don't know that we have written our stories. We don't know that our stories can be altered with free will as we're living our lives here on earth. And hopefully we play the game well. And we remember who we are while we're here. And we do what we came here to do, and we fulfill our mission. Mom led a beautiful life. A beautiful life. Mom's from Pensacola. She's a Pensacola native. She was born and raised here. She lived over there on what's that street? Where is that street's name? Papa's house. Over there, yeah, off of 9th Avenue, right behind the garden center. Yeah, right there. That was where she grew up. It was a little house on the corner, right behind the garden center. And beautiful little house, but beautiful yards, huge property. My grandfather, Papa, was he had a GE store over on Garden Street, and sold appliances and that kind of stuff. And they were really big in their church at First Presbyterian. And he was the camellia man. He would engineer these really cool flowers, all kinds of different breeds, and everyone wanted to wear his camellia on Sunday morning, And the yard was beautiful. It was beautiful with all these beautiful trees and a greenhouse. And I remember when I was a teenager, and he taught me to cut the yard. And that was back in the day before we had these really fancy riding lawnmowers. So that was not the most. Yeah, I don't know if I wrote that into my story. He probably wrote that into his, but it's all good. He was wonderful. I loved my papa. He was a beautiful grandfather, and he had a shed in the back, and he taught me about tools and how to do certain things. And my mother adored him. She was a daddy's girl for sure. My grandmother wasn't well. My grandmother. I remember my grandmother being little. I remember her fixing us grits. We have always loved grits in our family. Something very special. And my grandmother made the best cheese grits before church on Sunday. But my grandmother died at an early age with a cigarette in her mouth and a bottle of gin on the table. She was an alcoholic, and she never got help for that. Maybe that wasn't part of her story. But when the EMS came, my grandfather had them shock her for 15, 20 minutes because you don't want anybody to know that your wife is an alcoholic, obviously, especially down here in the South. Like we were taught growing up that when you walk out that door, you put a smile on your face and you don't talk about anything that happens in this house. Everything is perfect. We are perfect, and we're going to go to church perfect. And so that's how it was. But we were not perfect. We were imperfectly perfect. Imperfectly perfect we were. And so, my mom kind of wrestled with this, her whole life. I think she had a hard time being vulnerable and being transparent. And I think that's part of the culture. And I don't blame her for that. Just that's how she was raised. You don't go around and talk about your issues. So since 2008, I've been a clinical social worker. So I'm a psychotherapist. So I'm going to try not to analyze her today in front of you guys, or any of you for that matter. No, I'm just kidding. But I think this is a relatively newer thing where we kind of really open up, and we're in the age of transparency now. It's kind of hard to hide things, right? And the more things that we can share with others and open ourselves up, the more they can relate. You'd be surprised, when you start sharing from your heart what's really going on in your house. Other people are like, that's going on in my house too. It's going on in my house too. And then we can come together and we can heal. So Mom, she went to Pensacola High School. She played in the orchestra. She was born gifted at the piano. And then she went to FSU and she got her degree in music education. She was even in the Miss Florida pageant at one time. Wow. Yep. And after FSU, she returned to Pensacola, and she was teaching at an elementary school here. Then she met my dad. My dad was a pilot in the Marines at the time, and they fell in love and eventually moved to Hawaii, where my dad was stationed. And my mom loved that time in her life. This was from about 1970 to 1975, right? And she taught these Hawaiian kids school. She learned how to play the ukulele, like she had all these leis. And it was 1970. Her hair was down to here. She made all of her own dresses. She was very fashionable from the get-go. And so it was a beautiful time for her in that time. And I think it was 1973 when she became pregnant and she had a miscarriage. Now, I don't know if that was me coming in. I'm not clear on that. Could have been, because I chose her. So sometimes I think that when things like that happen, we are trying to come in, but maybe her body wasn't ready, so we waited. And I waited. If that was me, I waited. And so in 1975, they had me. And they moved back to Pensacola, actually Gulf Breeze. And my grandfather helped them build this beautiful house on Bay Street. It was in Villa Venice, one of the first neighborhoods that they built in Gulf Breeze. And it was interesting because in Villa Venice, all the houses were on canals that led out to the intercoastal, the sound. And so we were on closer to the sound. And it was such a beautiful lot because from our house, you could see the beach. And as a kid, I used to get my telescope out. I was weird. And I would look at people's houses on the beach. You could see in their windows, with my telescope. And I know, I was a weird kid. And I was just curious. And so it was interesting. You could see the moon and the stars, all this stuff. And nobody built on that other street that was back there. And to this day, no one's built there. So it's kind of the best property on Bay Street. And that's where we grew up. And I love that house. It was a beautiful house. We have so many amazing memories there. And going to Gulf Breeze High School, we went to Gulf Breeze Elementary, Middle, High, and did all that stuff. And it was really beautiful. So Dad left when I was 3. It was just, it was his time. Their mission had been completed, I guess. And he took off. And Mom told me that you were now the man of the house. Don't ever tell your kids that they're the man of the house or the woman of the house or whatever, please, because it's that's a big responsibility for a 3-year-old to be the man of the house. A really big responsibility. And it kind of robbed me of my childhood a little bit because I grew up taking care of the family as the man of the house. Mom remarried, Dad remarried. And Leslie and Tracy were born, who are my beautiful sisters sitting up here. I get to meet them later. And thank God that he did that because these women are amazing. And we got to spend a lot of time with them, right, growing up. We were those little kids on Delta Airlines with the wristbands, the UNAMs, when we were little. And we were like 6 or 7, and we got put on airplanes by ourselves. And they would take you we went to Dallas because my dad lived in Dallas. And so we did every other Christmas and every summer with Dad and Leslie and Tracy. And it was just a blast. And their mom was great. Like she was an artist. And so we did all kinds of art projects and had a pool and a hot tub. And it was like the best. It was the best. And I remember even one time, I think we were coming home from Dallas. And I remember stopping on the side of the freeway on the way to DFW, puking my guts out. I was so sick, and that was back in the day. They let you board the plane. And so I puked the whole plane ride home. I don't know if I had the flu or what, but that was not very fun. But we had a great time traveling and spending time getting to know different cities. And as kids, we were really fortunate to be able to do these things. So Mom remarried a man who, let's just say he wasn't a very nice person. She met him at the YMCA. They pumped iron together. He looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger, huge, did like professional bodybuilding shows and all that kind of stuff. And he was there for me. I called him Dad, but him and I butt heads. And why did we butt heads? Because who was the man of the house? Me. He never realized that. He never got the memo. And so we fought my whole life. We fought until he left around, I think, 11 or 12, and he left. And it was, and I'm not going to go into any of that because we don't need any of that here. But all I can say is we came home from church one Sunday morning and all of his stuff was gone. And I was like, praise Jesus. Thank you so much. So grateful. I get to be the man of the house again. And it devastated Mom, of course. It devastated her. But that was her business. And I stayed out of her business. And I just sat up in my room being very happy that I no longer had to be abused because I was abused by him. In a number of ways. We were all abused by him. And so I was super grateful that he was no longer there. Growing up in the house with Mom playing the piano was so incredible. I mean, all day. She practiced all the time. She doesn't just come here and sit here and then just play the piano. She would practice and practice and practice for those services. And we grew up in the First Presbyterian Church. And we were part of the Happiness Singers. She was leading the Happiness Singers, which is the kids choir. And then we moved to First United Methodist Church downtown. And we were there for most of elementary, middle, and high school. And Mom was an organist at that church. And that was during the days where Alan Pope was there. And that was a lot of fun. Mom had pianists. I mean, she would see like 5, 6, 7 piano students a day. My mom was a hard worker, a hard server. She served She serves this world. And, I remember growing up, it was kind of annoying because I wanted to take a nap and you'd hear these kids playing the piano. And I'm like, oh God, please let there be a student that's really good. Please. And every once in a while there'd be a student that was really good. And I would listen at the door. Otherwise I'd put my earphones in. And, what I would do is I'd go back into her music library. And she had this huge music library. This is as a little kid. And I would go through all of her music books. Right? And I would find the books that had the most ink on them. So, when you open up, you have the notes, right? I would find the one with the most notes. So the hardest music that you could find. And I would take it to her. And she always would play it for me. Every time she would sit down and play whatever it was, no matter what it was. Moonlight Sonata, could be anything. And not to mention, I grew up we both grew up performing and singing and dancing and all this stuff. So, anytime I wanted to sing, let's sing, have a sing-along. We would sit down at the piano and sing, and it was really beautiful. We grew up doing musicals. Mom was super big in local theater. We did St. Mary's productions and a number of different Pensacola Little Theater. And, I went to the dance center and, Ron Preet did Margie Short's dance company back in the day. Margie Short, remember her? And then Ron Preet was like, enough of this. And we both started out playing soccer and sports and stuff. And I never was really crazy about that. I was more the creative type. And then Ron Preet was taking ballet. And Ron Preet was like, I don't want to take this ballet. I want to play sports. So then we switched. Right, so then Ron Preet played the sports, and then I started taking ballet. So at 11 years old, I joined the dance center with Susan and Michael Williams, and I started dancing, and that changed my life and saved my life. It was beautiful going to the dance center every day after school because then I didn't have to get beat up by my stepdad. I could go there, and I could be safe, a place where people loved me and protected me. And I went there every day after school, and by the time I got home from dance, he was in bed and all was well. And I was there on the weekends, and Ron Preet was so busy with sports, and Ron Preet started doing art, and was drawing and painting, and all of it was just incredible. We really had some good times. We were lucky and privileged to be able to do everything that we did. Church was so much fun. I remember when I was 16 years old, I represented the state of Florida for the United States United Methodist Festival Choir, and I went with Alan Pote and a choir of other high school students. Youth choir from all the United States, and we went to Europe, and it was so much fun. We went to an ecumenical prayer community in Taizé, where it was like you had to be quiet, you couldn't talk, which was so weird. And but it was nice. And then we sang all over Europe, and it was just such a beautiful, beautiful experience. I spent my life in the church. We did at first, and I think Ron Preet kind of was doing more sports and that kind of stuff. But we grew up in the church. I lived in the church. Wednesdays, Sundays, Saturdays, all day long, church. And like, Mom would have to be there at 7 and we wouldn't leave until like 1. And so I would sit through one service or maybe sing in a service, and then I would go, did the bulletin boards and the youth hall, and I found other stuff to do, while we were there. But it was beautiful. We had a beautiful church community there. We got to do a lot of fun shows like Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. Go, Joseph. It was great. It was wonderful. I loved it. And so after my abusive stepfather left, thank God, some time went by, and I think it was around the time I was 15 or 16, and Mom was playing for a production at PJC called Seaplane, and she met Stan Dean. And Stan was a director of Seaplane, and he was a professor at PJC and the director for all their shows, and he was so great. He was amazing. And you know what he knew? He knew who the man of the house was. He did. So we had no problems. We had no problems at all. Like, we got along really well, and him being so artistic, he just welcomed me right in as a male dancer. A lot of people, they don't like that. They call you lots of horrible names and treat you really poorly, and you get bullied at school. And it was rough. It was really rough growing up. And but Stan accepted me and loved me for who I was. And he was a beautiful, beautiful man. But the best thing that Stan brought into my life was Shannon, my sister Shannon. And we were best friends from the very beginning. I remember driving around my little Volkswagen Jetta. We were just having a hoot. I was smoking cigarettes and 16. I was bad. Smoking cigarettes and drinking and all kinds of crazy stuff. And I can remember us all sitting in Mom's pool. She had a really shallow pool, and the shallow was like maybe 3 feet. We would put the chairs in the pool and just have cocktails. This was before we were 21 too. And Mom probably served us the cocktails, but I don't know. It was we had a blast, and Shannon has been an integral part of my life. We've been besties like ever since. I love you so much. And it's just you never know why two people meet and what happens, but that's what was the beautiful gift that came out of Mom and Stan was Shannon. So after high school, we took off, and Tara and we took off to SMU, Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas. Tara was majoring in theater, and I was majoring in dance, and that was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful experience. Changed our lives forever. And we would drive back and forth and come home and see our families, and our moms would come up there for our shows, and it was just so beautiful. And after SMU, as we all do, we moved to New York City to make it on Broadway and to make it on a dance company. And that was tough, it's tough in New York when you're young. They don't really want you when you're young to feel a little more experience. And so I waited tables and I bartended and partied a lot. I really did. I partied a lot. By that point, I'd gotten into drugs. I was drinking. It was fun. It was fun. I was 21. I was like, every weekend at clubs, and it was good times. And one day I met someone who was from Italy, and he says, "You're blonde. You're American. Move it to Rome. You will work and dance immediately." And I said, "What the heck?" So I did. I moved to Rome, and he was right. In 2 weeks, I got a job with a modern dance company, and then I had my whole professional dance career in Italy, and it was actually really beautiful. I did a number of shows and television shows. In 27, I retired, and what was beautiful is Mom and Ron Preet would come visit me in Rome. They loved that I was on tour everywhere in Italy because we would tour, and they would just come over. We just had the best time. It was like such beautiful vacations and times together there. When I was forced into retirement from dancing, I became a professional drug addict. I know that, like I told you earlier, dance for me was, that was the only place that was sacred. It was the only place that I knew how to express myself. I never learned, since we didn't talk about feelings in our house, because I was happy all the time. And so I didn't know how to express myself with words. I only knew how to express myself with movement. And so when I was forced into retirement with a bad knee, I started using drugs heavily. And my mom was always there for me throughout that time. She never judged me, and she was always there for me and always supported me. And 5 years later, at 32 years old, on March 16th, the day after her birthday is March 15th, 2008, I surrendered. I went to rehab, and I got sober. And I haven't had a drink of alcohol in almost 17 years. Other things have kind of come and go over the years. I've had a few relapses here and there, but I'm back on track today, and that's all that matters, because all we really have is today. My brother also came into recovery around the same time, and we thought to ourselves, wouldn't it be great if Mom could join us on this spiritual journey? Because we knew she had her issues. We all have our issues, right? She had her issues, and we wanted her to be happy. We wanted her to be happy like we were. And so I remember my brother was seeing a shaman, Native American healer at the time, and she told my brother, leave your mother alone. She didn't come here to become enlightened. She came here so that you could be enlightened. And I found that to be so profound. It's like she sacrificed certain aspects of her life for us, so that we could be the people that we are today. Because without the abuse that I endured, without the addiction, without all the trauma, I wouldn't be standing here today talking to you. I wouldn't be helping the thousands and thousands and thousands of people that I've helped over the last 17 years. And it's a really beautiful thing, and I owe that to her, for playing her role. She played her role very, very well. Hurricane Ivan destroyed her, and it destroyed our house on Bay Street. There was 8 feet of water in the house for a number of days. Her Steinway baby grand piano that she got from my grandparents for her high school graduation was underwater, upside down, for 8 days. 50 years of music library underwater. All of her ball gowns for the symphony and for church, everything underwater. And it devastated her, and Ron Preet and I were here, and we helped her get everything we could out of the house, and they had to demolish the house. We were lucky. We still had a house. That a lot of people came home, and there was just a slab, and they didn't know what their house was. And that was a hard time. That was a really hard time, and I'm sure all of you remember, because if you were here during that time, it was hard for all of us. We all lost a lot. A lot of that was just stuff. And we got Mom a little house in Independencia Street. It was cute. It was cute. Definitely wasn't the house we have in Bay Street, but it was cute, and it worked for her for a little while. And she, I think at that time too, she was like Gulf Breeze United Methodist, and then eventually she came here, and she did find a new house at right around the corner from the YMCA when the YMCA moved to its new location. And for those of you that know her from the YMCA, fitness fanatic. That woman was a fitness fanatic. She loved her fitness. I'm telling you. We were in the pool at the YMCA when we were 1 month old. We grew up in the YMCA as well. I mean, she taught us how to eat healthy. Well, I didn't even know what a Snickers bar was until I went to a friend's house when I was like 12. Because the only thing we had in our candy drawer was sugar-free mints that she had probably taken from a restaurant. You know the kind you get when you pay the check? And so that was about it. That was about all we had. And she moved into this house right around from the YMCA, and that was perfect for her because she could walk every day to the YMCA, and that was really beautiful. And I know she loved her YMCA people. Every time I'd come home, we'd go there and work out together. And she'd be like, this is my son, he's a bodybuilder. I used to be a lot bigger. I've now done more yoga. But she said, he's a professional bodybuilder. I'm like, not a professional bodybuilder, but okay. And she always introduced me to people saying weird things. It was weird. Like one time we were at a restaurant and she said, this is my son, the singer. I'm like, well, I was a singer, but I'm not really a singer. I'm kind of just your son, but okay. And you don't want to say like, well, I'm not a singer. You don't want to embarrass your mom. So I'm like, oh, and they're like, oh, where do you sing? I was like, oh, Texas. Yeah, okay. And so it was weird, but she just had this idea, I guess, of who she wanted me to be. She always had an idea of who she wanted me to be. And so let's move into her open heart surgery in 2018. We'll kind of skip there. So that was hard. That was a hard year for us. I got divorced that year, and right after, right when my spouse left, my mom had emergency open heart surgery a month later. And I was down here, and Ron Preet and I were down here, and we were down here every other weekend. We would kind of trade off. And during her surgery, it was like a 13, 14-hour surgery. It was really long. It wasn't supposed to be that long. They had complications. And the doctor came out and said, we don't think she's going to make it. And so we went into deep meditation and communicated with her in the other realm. because you can learn to go into meditation and speak with people when they're not necessarily here, if they're in another state or if they're no longer here on earth with us. So we went into meditation and we told her how much we loved her, and we told her, like, if this is your time, you can go. But it wasn't her time. And so when she came back, it was a miracle. I think they'd given her all the blood bank had. She literally had more transfusions than they've ever even seen. They were shocked that she survived. And she had strokes. And so she wasn't able to talk. Or we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know what was going to happen. All of you know she's played here recently. So she turned out great. Like, she was able to get through that. It was amazing. And she said, when I was there, I was in this big room and there was a tunnel. And Papa and Grandma were there and the angels were there. And they said, come, my child. We're here for you. And then she looked over here and she saw herself laying on like this kind of slab with a sword stuck in her heart. And she said, I have to go back for my kids. They're not ready yet. Or all of them are not ready yet, I think. Right? So she came back. She came back and she's been with us over these years, and it's been beautiful. It was a spiritual awakening for her. She had hope again, a newfound zest for life. It was beautiful. It was just so beautiful. And lately she started having problems again. Problems breathing, and we were like, oh gosh, what's going on? Let's hope that she gets some help. And over these last few years for me have been kind of rough because COVID was rough. I relapsed in 2019. I got divorced. We went through COVID. I closed the treatment center that I had founded. I was back in private practice. Preet was going through all of his own transformations and doing his own work. And, we were really busy. And I regret that I didn't come home enough or spend enough time with Mom. And at that point, she wasn't traveling anymore. So she wasn't coming to see me in Texas because she wasn't able to with her health. But I did come back about a year ago when Tara's father passed away, and I got to spend time with Mom, and that was really beautiful. And Preet came back in March, and they had a beautiful healing, 10 days together, or a week together, and they really needed that. They needed to have that closure, And thanks to my program in recovery, the 12 steps are beautiful, and I've worked them, and I've also done years of therapy. And I've done a lot of work. And so, I felt at peace with my mother. I arrived at a place where I knew that she had played her role well. And how could I be mad at her for playing her role the way that she had written it into her story, the way that I had written her into my story? So I moved into gratitude for everything, for my father, for my mother, for my siblings. So I moved into gratitude. And when Mom started having breathing problems about 2 months ago, I started doing deep meditation and communicating with her in that other space. And she said to me, this is not the most favorite role that I've played. And I said to her, you have done amazing in this life. I promise you that I will give you the award for Best Actress. I promise you. And if you're ready, I give you permission to go. You can go. With all of my love and all of my gratitude. Go. Do not stay here and suffer. And I truly believe that our family members stay here and suffer because we selfishly do not let them go. And I let her go. And Preet let her go. Energetically. The week she went into the hospital, they called me and said, your mom has a little bit of pneumonia and some sepsis, and we're going to admit her to the ICU, but you don't have to come here. She'll be fine. She'll be out. She'll be fine. I'm like, oh, okay, great. So on the Thursday morning, the day before she passed, her cardiologist called me, and they had done a cardiac procedure the day before, and they had gone in and they had found that everything they did in 2018 had come undone. And all the valves were deteriorated, and she needed to do more work. And they said, if she were 10 years younger, they would do open heart surgery, but we probably couldn't find a doctor to operate on her because they didn't think she would make it through the surgery. And so that's okay because she made it very clear that she will never be having another surgery. She decided She decided. And so they inserted some devices in her heart to keep it beating, and those were only supposed to be temporary. But when I got here, the doctor told me that if she weren't on these machines, she would not be able to live on her own. And she never wanted that. Never. She was very clear. Her wishes were very clear. She also signed a DNR, and that was very clear. And we intended to honor her wishes. And so I arrived on Thursday, and we had a beautiful night together. Our pre-business flight didn't get until the next morning, but it gave Mom and I a chance to kind of do some healing. And I told her how grateful I was for her. And she told me that she's just ready for this all to be over. And I said to her, "It's over when you say it's over. You get to decide." And we listened to piano music all night long. I put piano music in her ear, and she said, "Oh, that's lovely. It's so beautiful." She loved it, and we just had a good night together. And the next morning, things had kind of declined a little bit. She kept asking, "What time is Ron Creek getting in? What time is it?" Because she was waiting. She was waiting. And Ron Creek got there, and it was time. Her organ started shutting down, and we were there with her. And it was beautiful to be able to be there with her, both on each side of her. Our hands in her hands, our other hands on her heart, praying. I sang her a beautiful Sandy Patty song that she just loved, and we asked her, "Is there anything that you'd like to share with us before you go?" And she looked at us and she said, "I'm good. I'm done." Yeah, we laughed. We were like, "Oh, this is so," because she was a funny lady. I don't know if you guys experienced it. She was a very funny lady. I think these last years she was having some trouble with it. She was really funny, and so we just kind of chuckled. And she made her decision. She was ready, and so we accepted, and we stayed with her through that process while she took her last breath, while her heart beat its last beat, and her heart beat its last beat at 3:15 p.m. and that's her birthday. March 15th is her birthday. And such a beautiful experience. She had left her body before she died. She was hovering above she was hovering above the room. We were in tune, so we could sense that. And so she was in no pain, and they had given her something to help her feel less pain. And so she was in no pain at all. And they disconnected everything, and it was naturally just happened very quickly. And because she was already gone, and we sat with her until her body left, and we stayed with her for a little while. Even had lunch with her. We had some friends that ordered Bonefish Grill. We didn't know she was going to pass them. They had ordered us Bonefish Grill. That's Mom's favorite restaurant. For those of you that don't know, she loved the Bonefish Grill. And so we said, "What are we going to do with this Bonefish Grill?" I said, "Well, Mom would be really upset if we were to throw this away." So we had one final meal with Mom. It was great, And then we heard her say, "Get out of here. I do not want you to remember me like this." And so we said goodbye, and we left. And what a beautiful experience it was to be able to hold the sacred space and to usher this soul into the next life. As she did for us when she gave us birth. She brought us in from that plane, and we helped her go back and return home. And I never would have been able to do that had I been dead or had I been using drugs. So I'm so grateful for my recovery and the work that I've done, that I was able to actually be there and be present with her. So some lessons from Mom. Our mom taught us to serve. We are not here to work. None of us are here to work. We're here to serve. We're here to serve the kingdom. We're here to serve each other. And she taught us to serve. She served her whole life as a teacher, as an artist, as an organist in her church, in her community, even at the YMCA. She was always carrying that message of love and hope and compassion. She taught us self-discipline and consistency. You saw her show up here when she shouldn't have been here. She would go to work sick. I do the same thing. Not really. Probably shouldn't go to work when you're too sick, but she taught us, you have committed to serve. And when you commit to serve, you better be really sick before you call out. And so she taught us self-discipline and perseverance and consistency. She taught us to love with all of our heart. I think she loved hearts. She had her heart jewelry, her heart clothes, her heart everything. She came here to love. She came here to love and be loved. And it's unfortunate that she suffered so much heartbreak in her life, especially in her romantic relationships and her marriages. And I believe that probably caused her heart to fail, because if we don't resolve heartbreak, emotional heartbreak, it then manifests itself physically. But that wasn't what she wrote into her story, was to resolve it this time. She taught us to pump up our muscles and get fit and look nice and wear nice clothes. And most importantly, she taught us that none of us are victims. None of us are victims. We are all writing our stories. We have all written our stories. We're changing our stories. And the sooner that I owned my story, the more at peace I was in my life. Because this is the story that I wrote. No one did anything to me that I didn't write into my story. No one did anything to me without my permission. I have never been a victim. And my mother taught me that, and she wanted me to tell you that, so that all of us can start owning the stories that we're writing and the stories that we've written. And in closing, just a quote that I really like. If we don't see God in all, we don't see God at all. So now, special music. Yes, we will sing. Oh no, this is Chuck's going to throw that on for us. Yes, and this is a hymn. It's a beautiful hymn mantra called "So Much Magnificence." Not in the hymn, but we're going to put the music up here. And I don't know if we have the words, but you don't really need them, because all you need to do is listen to a few lines, and you'll be able to catch on. It's a really beautiful song. Well, I'd like us all to kind of sing along and sing it together. So once you kind of pick up on the words, Chuck, you're willing to go ahead